It started with a letter, just one, but not from ordinary citizens. We're talking about nearly 2,000 of the top minds in the country, calling out something they say could damage America for generations. And no, it's not a conspiracy. It's about what's happening behind the scenes. You might want to sit down for this. So here's what went down. A massive group of 1,900 leading researchers just dropped a bombshell on the Trump administration. And they didn't hold back. They accused the government of launching what they call a wholesale assault on U.S. science. Now, that's not the kind of phrase experts throw around lightly. These aren't politicians or campaign managers. These are people who've spent their lives doing real research, making real discoveries, and solving real-world problems. And now, they're warning that Trump's approach could set back American research by decades. Not years, decades. Think about what that means. We're talking about the very backbone of progress. Medical breakthroughs, environmental research, public safety systems, suddenly put on hold, or worse, erased. The warning isn't just about science. It's about what happens to you, your family, and the country when decisions are made without facts or evidence.
The systems that we have in place to protect our health and prevent disease are being damaged, and it will cost lives. Most of the people involved with signing this statement are far along in their careers. Many of them are Nobel Prize winners. Most of us have gray hair, so we're not doing this to salvage our own careers. Most of our careers are behind us. This is really out of fear for the American people and feeling like they need to be warned about this. I think the claim that this is an attempt to improve efficiency and reduce waste is a subterfuge. Because if that was really the goal, there's a proper way to do that. What you do is you thoughtfully and creatively design better ways to streamline operations. Their approach to improving the efficiency of these functions of government is basically to close the doors and send everybody packing. What's happening now is basically a deconstruction of the capacity of the U.S. government to do research. And the same thing is happening to our public health infrastructure at HHS. Piece by piece, it's being dismembered so that our ability to protect the health of the American people is being decimated by the government. I think it's pretty clear to those of us in these fields who have spent our careers in this what the outcome of it is going to be. What this means is that Americans are going to be less able to enjoy the benefits of scientific discoveries as people in other countries. So if you get a heart attack or your child is diagnosed with cancer, the latest drug to treat that may not be available in the United States because the clinical trials were canceled by the Trump administration. What's happening at HHS is a sweeping attack on most of the elements of government that protect the quality of healthcare for Americans and optimize their health. You know, for many people, it may seem like some distant bureaucratic machinations in Washington, D.C., and many of them may feel like a good shakeup there is long overdue. But ultimately, what people don't realize is how this is going to impact them.
Now, you might be wondering, who exactly are these people making the claim? Well, it turns out this wasn't just a Change.org petition. This open letter was signed by elected members of the National Academies of Sciences, Engineering, and Medicine, the Avengers of the research world. These are the people who've shaped everything from the internet to cancer treatments. Their signature means something. When this kind of group takes the time to speak up, you know it's serious. And they're not shouting for clicks or headlines. They're doing it because they believe the future of American science and the economy that relies on it is at risk. They're urging the public, and especially Congress, to step in and stop the bleeding before it's too late. That's how high the stakes are. And the crazy part? This warning didn't come out of nowhere.
The Trump administration is waging a, quote, wholesale assault on U.S. science, an effort that threatens the country's health, economic development, national security, and scientific preeminence. That's according to an open letter published today by nearly 2,000 doctors, scientists, and researchers.
Let's break it down. According to the letter, the damage isn't theoretical. It's already happening. We're talking about layoffs at critical science and health agencies, budget cuts, research delays. In some cases, researchers are being pressured to abandon their work altogether just because it doesn't line up with a certain ideology. And if that's not alarming enough, they're also pointing to something even more disturbing: the removal of public access to scientific data. That's right. research and information that used to be publicly available is being locked away. Think about how that affects everything from healthcare to education to climate policy. But here's where it gets even more surprising. Some scientists are being told to change their results, not because the data is wrong, but because the truth might be inconvenient to certain political narratives. Imagine being a scientist who spent years developing a vaccine or tracking climate trends, only to be told, you can't publish that. That's not just silencing science, it's silencing progress. And when science is silenced, you pay the price. Literally.
Now, today marks the start of U.S. President's widest-ranging tariffs. At midnight, a 10% baseline levy kicked in, hitting virtually all U.S. trading partners and sparing only Canada and Mexico, at least for now. The tariffs could trigger retaliation from all corners of the world and plunge a flailing global economy into...
Because here's the kicker. The Trump administration's latest tariff policies could hit American families hard. Without proper scientific input, economic modeling falls apart. That means policies are being created without understanding the consequences. And guess who's left footing the bill? You, the taxpayer. And that's just scratching the surface. Because what happened next? That takes things from concerning to absolutely chaotic. We're talking about canceled research, top resignations, and one very controversial appointment that shocked the scientific world. Stay tuned, because you won't believe how deep this goes. And if that wasn't enough to raise red flags, the letter also delivers a stark reminder. For over 80 years, the U.S. government has invested heavily in scientific research. That consistent support didn't just push American innovation forward, it helped build what is now one of the most respected and powerful research enterprises in the world. Think about it. Breakthroughs in medicine, technology, agriculture, energy, you name it, have all come from that long-standing commitment to science. But now, that legacy is being shaken at its foundation. The scientists aren't just voicing frustration, they're issuing a call to action. They're urging Americans to speak up, to appeal directly to Congress, and to demand protection for scientific funding. Because here's the thing, once trust in science is broken, once institutions lose support and resources, the damage doesn't just affect researchers in lab coats, it hits everyone. From the air we breathe to the safety of the food on our plates, science plays a role in nearly every part of daily life. But why now? What's fueling this sense of urgency? Well, the context goes beyond just one open letter. It's about a pattern of decisions, some public, some more behind the scenes, that together paint a worrying picture. The Trump administration, alongside high-profile figures like Elon Musk, who champion deep spending cuts, has been driving a broader ideological shift. In their push for deregulation and smaller government, one of the first things to get slashed has been scientific programs and infrastructure. It's like they're not just trimming fat, they're cutting into the bone. And the effects of these cuts, they're already being felt. The National Institutes of Health, a cornerstone of medical progress, saw its funding plummet by billions during the Trump years. That's not just a number, it translates into canceled projects, fewer clinical trials, and delays in life-saving research. Critical areas like climate science, which already faced political pushback, were suddenly on the chopping block. Even research into transgender health, an area that directly impacts marginalized communities, was shelved. The result is more than just lost knowledge. It's a step backward. When funding disappears, so do jobs, data, and innovations. The entire field stalls. And when science becomes politicized, the consequences can ripple out for decades. And yet, the scariest part? Most people aren't even aware it's happening. That's why this letter matters. It's not just about protecting labs and grants, it's about preserving the truth, the process, and the future of discovery. And unless more voices join in, unless Congress is pushed to act, we may not just lose our edge, we may lose the trust and transparency that science is built on. So now the question is, will Americans step up before it's too late? Because science isn't just facts and formulas, it's the foundation of everything we count on. But the numbers don't lie, and neither do the headlines that followed. As part of a sweeping reorganization tied to Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s agenda, A staggering 10,000 employees at the Department of Health and Human Services were laid off. This wasn't just trimming the edges. This was gutting the system from the inside out. Vital roles were lost, critical departments dismantled, and public health responsibilities left hanging by a thread. And as if that weren't controversial enough, the administration's hiring decisions sparked even more outrage. A prominent vaccine skeptic, someone who's long pushed the thoroughly debunked claim linking vaccines to autism, was appointed to research that very topic. It was the kind of move that left the scientific community stunned and alarmed. Because when misinformation gets a seat at the research table, public trust takes a serious hit. Things escalated when the top vaccine regulator, someone responsible for overseeing national immunization policy, resigned in protest. His reasoning? He pointed directly at Kennedy's misinformation and lies, saying they made it impossible to do the job ethically or effectively. It wasn't just a personnel shakeup, it was a signal that science itself was being pushed aside in favor of politics. So, where did this all begin? It started with growing unease among members of the National Academy of Medicine. They saw the signs early, research being sidelined, trusted experts being silenced, and decided to take a stand. That concern soon spread to other institutions and under the leadership of Dr. Stephen Wolfe, a collaborative effort was born. Together, they coordinated with members from the National Academies of Sciences, Engineering, and Medicine to bring their warnings to light.
We've spent 80 years in this country building up our scientific infrastructure. Federal agencies have been investing in the National Institutes of Health, the National Science Foundation, and that's enabled our country to make remarkable scientific discoveries that have made the United States the envy of the world. In a matter of weeks, the Trump administration has pursued a set of policies that are basically removing the capacity of our country to do this kind of research. And it has broad implications across many of the sectors that you mentioned. I'm a physician, so it's of great concern that this is going to affect health and the life expectancy of Americans.
The team that drafted the letter? 13 leading scientists, handpicked from diverse disciplines, medicine, climate science, sociology, and economics, all uniting with one goal: to defend truth, transparency, and scientific progress. Their message was clear. These attacks aren't just dangerous, they're deadly. Dr. Wolfe didn't mince words. He pointed to real-world outcomes: declining life expectancy, higher mortality rates, and growing mental health issues. These aren't distant problems. They're happening now, in real communities, with real consequences. One clear example was the restructuring of the Agency for Healthcare Research and Quality. This agency, which plays a crucial role in ensuring patient safety and widening access to preventive care, was thrown into disarray. And when institutions like that are hollowed out, it's everyday Americans who suffer most. Meanwhile, universities and research labs faced their crises. Projects that had been years in the making were abruptly paused. Faculty members were let go, and with fewer research grants, graduate student enrollment plummeted, shrinking the very pipeline of future scientific talent. And perhaps most alarming of all, the accusation that the administration was actively censoring science. From climate change to vaccine safety to vital economic data, researchers were being blocked, silenced, or pressured to toe the political line. In a country built on free inquiry and evidence-based progress, that kind of censorship isn't just concerning. It's a direct threat to democracy itself. If you care about truth, health, and the future of science, now's the time to speak up. Share this video, drop your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more. Together, we can hold leaders accountable and protect the integrity of science before it's too late.